Well, I really didn't feel like making another one of these videos, but Rafine made me an offer I couldn't refuse, so you get a draft guide and my family gets to live. Win-win! New Capenna is a world of mobsters and upstanding citizens and their business enterprises. And you have the chance to get in on the ground floor of one of these exciting opportunities. There are several businesses in hiring mode right now. The first family is the Obscura. Their creatures are more conniving than a Ferengi CEO, which means they get to loot some number of cards, and for each non-land they discard, they get a 1/1 counter. This mechanic is very flexible. Looting is an incredible mechanic for smoothing your draws, and if you have some extra gas to discard, you can get a 3/2 for 2 or a 3/4 flyer for 4. And those are just the commons. Psychic Pickpocket and Obscura Interceptor act as bouncers, Rafine's Silencer gets revenge when she dies, Hypnotic Grifter is a mana sink, and Tola's lets you do takesies backsies on cards you discard. There are some great synergies with this mechanic. Quasar drains the opponent whenever you draw a card. Obscura Ascendancy is a powerful payoff that's difficult to pull off unless you can find exactly the cards you're looking for. Fairy Vandal gets bigger as long as you're conniving enough, and Maestros Initiate is an easy choice to put in your graveyard and let you loot even more. Now, most of this wants you to play a controlling strategy. Cards like Voidrend, Obscura Charm, and Nimble Larcenist slow down your opponent to give you more time to build up your criminal empire and eventually kill them with your flyers. The Maestros family doesn't care who gets in their way. Gang War casualties only fuel their spells. Of the 12 spells with casualty, there's 1 casualty X, Ob Nixilis, a mythic you won't see very often, and 2 casualty 3 cards, a rare and a 5-mana tutor, neither of which are relevant enough to talk about, despite that I'm doing so now. That leaves us with 9 cards, all of which have casualty 1 or 2. The best of these are Make Disappear, Grisly Sigil, Join the Maestros, and Light 'em Up. Since all of these cap at casualty 2, you want to prioritize expendable 1 and 2 power creatures. Things like Broker's Veteran, Expendable Lackey, Corrupt Court Official, Rafine's Silencer, and Unlucky Witness. Maestro's Initiate and Riveteers Requisitioner are also well suited to become casualties, as well as any creature that you've blitzed this turn. While this isn't the most aggressive deck in the format, don't be afraid to include cheap creatures that become less relevant in the late game, as you can always turn them into fodder for your casualty spells. Other good cards include Errant, who's a cheap defender that allows you to copy your copied spells, and she's smart enough to have 0 power. Cormella ramps you into your expensive spells, and when you no longer need her mana, you can turn her into just another casualty. Maestro's Ascendancy lets you sacrifice even more creatures to cast even more spells. Join the Maestros works particularly well with this. And Sleep with the Fishes is a good removal spell for any deck, but you can make better use of the fish token than anyone. It's 4th down and goal. The Cabaretti are making the play. Oh, the Riveteers blitz, sacking the quarterback, and this game is over. The Riveteers' strategy is to be as aggressive as possible, without fear of who will die along the way. The best blitzers to pick up are Nightclubber, Riveteers Requisitioner, Workshop Warchief, and Zayator's Envoy. Honestly, a lot of the commons don't seem great, but hey, at least you'll only have to see them for 1 turn before they bite the dust. All these cards can be helped by Mr. Orfeo, which doubles a creature's power, Riveteers Ascendancy, which turns sacrificed creatures into smaller, previously blitzed creatures, or Forge Boss and Pyresledge Arsonist, which ping your opponents or their creatures with every sacrifice you make. Your blitz creatures can even escape the Grim Reaper if they fake their own death. The Riveteers are an aggro family, so keep an eye out for any creature with power greater than its mana cost. There are a lot of good ones. The Cabaretti are always making alliances with whoever happens to enter the battlefield. Some of the best diplomats are Rumor Gatherer, Witty Roastmaster, Devilish Valet, Elegant Entourage, and Gala Greeters. Since these abilities trigger every time another creature enters under your control, and some of them have bonuses for triggering twice in a turn, you want cards that bring friends. Mage's Attendant, Exhibition Magician, Cabaretti Charm, Rakish Revelers, and Stimulus Package. You can also get tokens by attacking with Darling of the Masses, Pugnacious Pugilist, and Rabble Rousing. In addition to token generators, you can trigger Alliance twice by simply casting 2 creatures in a turn, meaning you might want to reduce the average mana value of your creatures. try to run more 2 and 3 drops and fewer 5s and 6s. Gathering Throng is especially good here, ensuring you have a new creature to cast every turn. Other payoffs include Ginny Fae, who upgrades your creature tokens, Jaxus, who makes copies of your creatures, particularly your token-producing creatures, Speak Easy Server, who keeps your life stable while locking down the air game, and Cement Shoes, which turn even your puny 1/1s into a force to be reckoned with. The brokers take care of their own. Many of their agents enter the battlefield with shield counters, which protect them from one instance of damage or destruction. This allows them to shrug off a removal spell or trade off in combat, but actually surviving while killing the opposing creature. I was fully prepared to tell you to watch out for an End the Festivities or Pyroclasm type card, because those would strip the shield counters from all of your creatures, even the ones who would have survived the low amount of damage. But the only cards that are similar to this are at rare. So the main cards to look out for are Pugnacious Pugilist and Pyresledge Arsonist, which can deal a small amount of repeatable damage. Otherwise, board wipes will strip your shield counters, but those probably would have killed your creatures anyhow. And if you want to get sneaky, you can even cast board wipes of your own to clear out your opponent's defenders and then swing with all of your creatures that just survived the blast. Other good cards include Revelation of Power, which turns your shielded creature into a flying lifelinker for a turn. Mysterious Limousine can be used on your own creatures to reset their shield counters. Broker's Charm allows your shielded, high-power creatures to punch another creature without fear of removal in response. Well, shield counters don't stop bounce or exile, so things like Run Out of Town and Out of the Way will still get you. And while Public Enemy looks like an EDH card, you can put it on your own shielded creature to force the opponent to attack with all their creatures each turn. You win combat by trading up or trading shield counters, and then you counterattack with no fear of blockers. In addition to the 5 families, there are 5 more archetypes focused on the 2-color intersections between the families. Whereas the family archetypes are more general strategies, aggro, control, go wide, these ally pairs tend to be more specific, which means you'll need to commit to them harder and will only want to do so if you have good payoffs. White-blue is all about counters. This includes the broker's shield counters, but also utilizes +1/+1 counters, like those found on the Conniving Obscura. Metropolis Angel and Exotic Pets are great payoffs for this deck, drawing cards and creating an unblockable clock. Unclockable! Celestial Regulator and Backstreet Bruiser are decent payoffs, though probably won't be picked highly and thus can be gotten on the wheel. Other pickups for this deck include Boon of Safety, Swooping Protector, Slip Out the Back, and Wing Shield Agent. You have access to a lot of flying, so this tends to be a more tempo-based strategy. One of my favorite options for this deck is to suit up Illuminator Virtuoso with Security Bypass to make an unblockable double striker. Because Connive and Casualty both put cards into your graveyard, Blue-Black cares about having 5 different mana values among cards in your graveyard. You'll want to infiltrate a crime syndicate if you find Sanguine Spy, Aven Heartstabber, or, well, Syndicate Infiltrator. This mechanical theme can be difficult to execute because a lot of decks only run 5 different mana values. Everyone has 0 mana lands, and spells costing 2 to 5 are readily available. But you want to diversify your options, so look out for spells costing 1 or 6. There are actually lots of playable 1-drops in these colors. You want to prioritize the ones that go straight to your graveyard and won't be leaving it. As for mana values 6 and up, excluding higher rarities, there's only Sewer Crocodile and Dusk Mangler, so make sure to pick these up whenever you see them. Other good inclusions are payoffs like Graveyard Shift, Snooping Newsy, and Tainted Indulgence, or cards that mill you, like Deal Gone Bad or Dig Up the Body. As you might have guessed, the intersection of the Casualty family and the Blitz family cares about sacrificing your creatures. Just take all the same expendables you would use in those decks, Corrupt Court Official, Maestro's Initiate, Tenacious Underdog, Exhibition Magician, Unlucky Witness, yada yada yada, and add payoffs for doing so. Things like Forge Boss, Body Dropper, and Pyresledge Arsonist are great reasons to join the gang war. While you have any of these guys on the field, use the Casualty and Blitz abilities liberally. As the most aggro deck in the format, Black-Red wants to make use of fast beaters and cheap removal. And as always, cheap combat tricks turn into cheap removal when combined with aggressive creatures. Green has shrugged off its inhibitions about unnatural things like currency and being balanced, and decided it wants to make mana in any way possible. Red-Green's theme is treasures, and boy does it know how to make that cheddar. Increase your wealth with cards like Big Score, Riveteers Requisitioner, Sticky Fingers, Jewel Thief, Most Wanted, and that sweet sweet $600 stimulus package. Then use your newfound wealth to ramp out or splash for giant creatures like Rox Pummeler, Cleanup Crew, Masked Bandits, or Rakish Revelers. Or create giant creatures at a low cost with Security Rocks and Capenna Express. Professional Facebreaker turns your treasures into Impulse Draw, and as always, Pyre Sledge Arsonist is great. Actually, it's probably at its best with a bunch of treasure to sacrifice at will. On New Capenna, treasure can buy anything you want, except for an evenly cut pie. Green-White cares about the everyman, the citizens who are the lifeblood of this city. If elected, payoffs for this deck are Angelic Observer, Take to the Streets, and of course, the signposts, Ceremonial Groundbreaker, Darling of the Masses, and Civil Servant. Some of the best citizens to fill your deck with are Swooping Protector, Civic Gardener, Voice of the Vermin, and Spara's Adjudicators. Now you may be saying, Andrew, you can't play Spara's Adjudicators in a 2-color deck that doesn't focus on treasure. Au contraire, my dim-witted friend. Tax-paying voter. This 3-color common cycle is very interesting in that their fixing ability lets you splash for themselves. So if you're playing 2 of the 3 colors for any of these, don't be afraid to put it in your deck, it's covered. Next up, let's talk about the best commons in each color. WotC's been experimenting with white cantrip creatures recently, and they've finally made one that's good. No, I mean good. Inspiring Overseer is definitely the best white common in the set, being a 2/1 flyer for 3 that replaces itself. Hold for Ransom is the best white removal spell, being most of a pacifism. It is removable, but not until your opponent has 7 mana and spends a full turn to get their creature back and draw you a card. Back in Ixalan, Merfolk Branchwalker was an uncommon, and a good one at that. Rafine's Informant is very similar, having the ability to become a 3/2 for 2, and provide card selection. Hello, legitimate business person. Nice day for business, don't you think? This Witness Protection plan is definitely the best blue has to offer this set. 1 mana, turn any creature into an innocuous citizen? Sign me up. Echo Inspector can be as big as a 3/4 flyer for 4 with card selection. Enough said. And Make Disappear is a flexible counterspell. You can use it as a quench, sacrifice a creature to double the cost they have to pay to resolve their spell, or you can even counter both a casualty spell and its copy. Every time Murder is reprinted, it's one of the best cards in the set, and definitely the best black common. However, in Streets of New Capenna, yeah, it still is, it's number 1. Every time we see a Burglar Rat functional reprint, the card overperforms. Corrupt Court Official is sure to give you tons of value by ripping a card from the opponent, then doubling up a casualty spell. And Maestro's Initiate may seem innocuous, but he just kind of fits in every deck. A great card to discard to connive, sack to casualty, or, just trade off and then provide value in the late game. Lightning Bolt is a multi-format all-star. Turns out, even when it's a sorcery and unable to hit face, Strangle is still going to be a powerhouse in Limited. Light 'em Up is considerably worse than Strangle, but still takes the spot for number 2 red common. It's versatile, letting you sack a creature to take out 2 creatures, or just fell a large 4 toughness creature. Number 3 was hard to settle on, but Sticky Fingers seems like it does so much for just a single mana. It grants evasion, mana ramp, enables treasure synergies, and replaces itself when the enchanted creature dies. Remember when Centaur Courser was playable? Ha! Boomer. Jewel Thief is the new standard, and yes, it's just a common. This guy is a train. Speaking of, Capenna Express is a train. Treasure is all over, so it shouldn't be hard to buy your ticket, but even just crewing the vehicle isn't too hard either. And number 3 also involves treasure. Prize Fight is an instant fight spell which works great with high power shielded creatures or vehicles, and the treasure left over helps you splash, ramp, or crew Capenna Express. And for colorless cards, as always, it's just the Evolving Wilds. Most people are going to be playing 3 or more colors in this format, and these Evolving Wilds wannabes are exactly what you need to make that happen. So take these and the dual lands aggressively. Finally, I always like to touch on a couple of rares that let you build a different kind of deck. Giada is a great card on her own, but if you get her early, you can focus on picking up Angels. There are 8 others in the set, and the commons are all solid. You'll want to focus on playing white, blue, and black in that order. Evelyn is a vampire tribal legend that lets you draw and steal a bunch of cards. Unfortunately, the vampires are a little bit lackluster. Glamorous Outlaw is fine, but the other 2 commons are Cutthroat Contender and Midnight Assassin. If you do try this, you'll want to play a late game deck focusing on black and blue for control elements, and a touch of red for the 3-color vampires. And Evolving Door is a sweet new card that lets you sacrifice a creature to tutor up a creature with 1 more color, but you do still need to pay the mana cost of the new creature. This card is best in a deck that's base red, green, white, because red-green gives you access to treasures to play the new creatures, and green-white gives you creature tokens to sacrifice to the door. Now those tokens are green and white, which means you upgrade them directly into 3-color creatures. So you want to draft a lot of the common 3-color fixer cycle, which works well, because they also fix your mana to play all of your 5-color good stuff. I am so excited for a new 3-color Arc set. The mechanics look like a lot of fun, and they have so much overlap that you can make them work together in all sorts of different decks. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like, and if you want to see more draft guides like this in the future, remember to subscribe.